College students should have the right to carry guns on campus. That is the argument from some students who say they should be allowed to protect themselves, especially after April's massacre at Virginia Tech. Andrew Dysart is president of George Mason University's chapter of Students for Concealed Carry on Campus, and John Rosenthal is the founder of the group Stop Handgun Violence. Thanks to both of you for your time today.
Thank you for having me on.
Andrew, I'll start with you. The state of Virginia has a law that allows colleges and universities to prohibit students, faculty, and staff from carrying guns on campus. Why do you have a problem with that law?
Well, there's actually no law that allows them to prohibit it. There's just no law that keeps them from doing it also. Our main issue is that we feel that students should be able to protect themselves on campus as they can off campus.
Is there concern, though? I think that the first argument that's always brought up is the fact that if you've got too many guns, if you've got guns on campus, that you potentially have the possibility of more violence.
That is a good question, but George Mason University has the same policy that's similar to Virginia Tech. And Virginia Tech had a strong handgun or a strong no-gun policy, and it didn't work for them. And our main issue is just that those students should have been able to defend themselves. We feel that we should have that same right too.
John, does he have a point here? Do students have the right to protect themselves?
Well, I'm a gun owner and a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, but I think it's insane and dangerous to arm students on college campuses.
Why do you say insane? That's a strong word.
Well, because teenagers by nature are temporarily insane. And to arm them and allow them to have armed keg parties is probably going to lead to then teachers being armed and having to battle students in case there's some conflict. I mean, it's going to change the equation on college campuses. Campus shootings are relatively rare, and I think before we arm students and arm teachers, we should at least have a uniform requirement for background checks for all gun sales. And currently, federal gun policy allows guns to be sold without even an ID or a background check in 32 states, including for convicted felons and suspected terrorists. So long before we arm students and teachers, we should have basic background check requirements for all gun sales.
Andrew, are you concerned that guns would get into the hands of the wrong people, even students who are perhaps untrained, who might not use them properly?
Well, our main issue, John would like you to believe that that we're talking about arming teenagers, arming freshmen, come to school, we'll give you a gun. Our focus is students with concealed handgun permits, which means you have to be 21 years or older, you have to pass a background check, you have to go through training. We aren't talking about just giving everyone guns, we're talking about the group of people 21 years or older who have gone through the training, gone through the background checks, and this is happening at other schools.
Do you buy his argument, though, that these students are temporarily insane, at least, given, I guess, their age, or I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, John, but do you buy that argument,
Well,
Andrew?
what I'm referring to is, you know, hormones are raging when you're a teenager, and the last thing you should do is arm them with a lethal weapon. I mean, guns are made to kill, and you should not be arming young adults or teenagers with easily concealable, high-powered weapons when they are dealing with crises like boyfriends and girlfriends breaking up or a bad grade. I mean, can you envision an armed keg party on a college campus or a bad grade given by a professor and a kid pulls out a handgun and shoots them because they are allowed to carry handguns on campus?
But John, what about the students who say we're sitting ducks here? We're sitting ducks if we're sitting in a classroom and we're not allowed. How do you respond to that?
We are all sitting ducks in this country because the Congress has allowed the NRA to dictate gun policy such that convicted felons and people on the suspected terrorist watch list can buy guns in 32 states without even a background check or ID.
Hey,
we
Andrew,
are all sitting ducks because
Andrew, let me
guns
jump
are
in here.
easily accessible.
Let me jump in here and get Andrew with one more question. Even after the Virginia Tech tragedy, a university spokesman says the school's position on a student's right to carry hasn't changed in spite of everything they've gone through. So what do you make of that?
I think they need to look at the bigger picture. These students should have a right to defend themselves on campus. What John is calling for is just a total slaughter if some madman would like to have his way. Cho was able to get a gun, and he passed all the background checks. We're looking at the students, the good guys, the students who want to carry to protect themselves. This is happening on other college campuses. Blue Ridge Community College here in Virginia, Colorado State University, and universities in Utah all allow their students with concealed handgun permits to carry on campus. It hasn't been an issue there. George Mason University is also largely a commuter school. So most of these students that I know with permits are carrying in their everyday lives outside of school, and they're responsible enough to be able to handle that. There are no issues with that.
And that's going to have to be the last word. Andrew Dysart and John Rosenthal, thanks to both of you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.